Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we are back here on VC TV to speak about sustainability and social impact. I know we spoke a little bit about this yesterday around impact investing in general around blockchain, but we're going to open this up a little bit more and talk about sustainability as a whole and social impact globally as well. We brought some investors to share their thoughts and insights and also trends as to what they're seeing in these areas as well. So stay tuned. But a big thank you for each of you joining in today and welcome. We see you commenting, so feel free to continue to comment, drop questions. We'll do our best to ask them in real time. If not, we'll be available at the end and on social media afterwards to chat as well. So hello again. Hello. Thank you for all the comments coming in. A big shout out as well. If you'd like to be on the show like today's, do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find the right spot for you. And speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team, to Maria and Hasmik, who make VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and let's go ahead and introduce today's investors. Julio, welcome back. It's always a pleasure. Happy New Year. And if you can, a little intro, a little background for everybody.
Hi, Kyle. Nice to see you. Thank you to LATOKEN and everybody on the team for inviting me. Happy New Year, because this is my first panel this year. I participated in several last year. Took a little time off and frankly had to close a few investments, and now we're out there looking for more. November, December are typically when you close investments, and then you start looking in January. But with the pandemic, everything got pushed back, so we spent most of January and February finishing some unfinished business from 2020, and glad to be back.
Wonderful. Welcome back. For those that don't know, Julio also focuses a lot on the hospitality travel industry as well, has some great companies that will be relevant to today's discussion. So if you haven't checked out New York Bay Capital, definitely recommend it, but also you'll see why in just a few minutes as we start diving into today's topic. Garrett, welcome back. Seeing you yesterday was an absolute pleasure. We had a great conversation around impact and some of the things you're working on around automotive, smart cities, and mobility as a whole. But a little introduction and background for those who may not have been able to tune in.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle, and happy to meet you, Julio. We've been doing impact and sustainable investments now for, since 2010, after the real estate crisis. I was looking around at things to do, and I just decided to focus on this area, both as far as a venture capitalist and do direct investments with my own money and some of my friends and former business associates, to really focus on this area. And we started doing what a lot of people do is just broadly looking at the area and doing investments all over. But I immediately started to focus on what I call smart transportation, which is really, when you look at impact and sustainable investments, I was running into the problem is, how do you define that? How do you make sure that each of them are qualified? And what I found was that if I'm doing smart transportation, which is really all about changing what we now are starting to go through, which is changing 100-year-old technology of internal combustion engines, and whether it's vehicles or ships or planes or trains, to the new, whether it's electricity or maybe even hydrogen, depending on what you believe is going to, I was going to create impact with all of that investment in this area. So that's really where I've been focused. And we did a fund that just closed, as Julie said. We're supposed to close it in the end of December, and we wound up closing it at the end of January. Had a great return, 100% a year, which is not bad to my investors. And I'm now out raising a new fund to really focus on this area because there's lots of opportunity. So that's where I'm really focused, right on that smart transportation, smart cities.
So Garrett, with that being said, I kind of want to jump in on that last thought you just mentioned. I mean, you have experience running a fund. and now are out running, raising for a second fund to focus on these areas in addition to mobility and smart cities. What are some of the lessons that you learned as to where, again, sustainability was to where it is today as an investor running those funds?
Right. It's not my first fund. This will be crossover 4. And I had a mutual fund company back 20 years ago. So I've been, I've had a lot of experience raising capital and running capital, multiple billions when I had the mutual fund company. So the lessons I learned is you really need to understand, if you're going to be in the sustainability and impact space, what are you trying to accomplish? Because there's so many vehicles, whether they're liquid investments, ETFs, mutual funds, or separate accounts. You can do it that way, or you can do it through philanthropy, or what I call philanthro ventures, which is sort of half and half, or you can do it just in venture capital. So I decided that I understood that venture capital pretty well, and I could really dig into the companies and understand what they were doing and making sure that they had impact, and their business plan was helping to create sustainable environment in that area. And I looked at, we did a couple of deals in the Caribbean. We did a couple deals in Indonesia back in the first day, and I really found out when I traveled to all those places, like, you're from out of town, and as they say in real estate, when you're from out of town, you're from out of town. So I really decided to focus here in the United States, and I am looking at a couple companies in Europe, but I really try to focus here on the United States, because then I just travel to. It's not just Silicon Valley. I'm here in San Francisco, but in transportation, Detroit is making a huge comeback, and it's not GM and Ford necessarily. There's a lot of new technology, and whether when you look at down in Phoenix, or all over the country, but these two areas, Detroit and down south of me in the valley, are really where a lot is going on.
What are you seeing happening in Detroit? Being a Midwesterner and very, very familiar with the Mitten State, for those who may not know, that's Michigan. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from your standpoint as an investor. I've seen that investment scene, by the way, the ecosystem grow from nothing, just the universities, all the way through to having flourishing venture capital. We're seeing many exits in the cybersecurity, a lot of efforts around AI and autonomous and many other forward-thinking technologies. But would love to hear your perspective, Garrett, and what you're seeing there as well.
Yeah, Kyle, I think you're exactly accurate. So what's going on in Detroit is a real renaissance there, as far as, it used to be the big 2 or 3 Ford and GM, but they have done so much to revamp their business model, and they've let so many people go, engineers, people that work a couple of years and then can't move ahead, and they just decide to drop out, and they've created a lot of ideas on how they want to see the world improve. And I don't think that I've ever found a company in Detroit that's trying to start a new internal combustion technology company. It's all looking to the future because they see that as an opportunity. So I go there. Well, this year I only went once, but the last couple of years I go there 2 or 3 times a year. And I'm generally meeting with people that used to work for GM or Ford, and they were fairly high up in the organization, but then they either retired or they got retired. And they're very interested in talking about what's going on and what's new. So there's a lot of people that are very well educated and believe very heavily in this transition to electric or hydrogen vehicles. And it doesn't have to be just cars. It can be trucks and infrastructure. It's a great place to hang out if you're interested in this area, because it's booming.
I will shamelessly second that as well. But Julio, go ahead and add on.
Well, I mean, this discussion on transport immediately reminds me. We've helped a fund raise capital. It's called Autotech Ventures. Check them out, autotechvc.com. Auto is AUTO and Tech, TECH, so autotechvc.com. They're now raising their third fund. We're helping them raise their third fund. We helped them raise their second and now their third. It's all about investing, it's a VC fund, and it's all about investing in new transportation, anything having to do with, the future regarding cars, self-driving cars, apps that find parking spots, new things you can add to your car for AI, but driverless buses, driverless trucks, all of that. Autotech invests, and they're in Silicon Valley. They're near San Francisco. So, Garrett, maybe you can go visit them anytime. You'd be welcome. I'd set it up. And it's a very exciting fund. I guess those of us who watch the Super Bowl, maybe not for the game, but for the ads, noticed the ads that General Motors put out during the telecast, and they were quite exciting. I mean, basically, GM has pledged not to stop making internal combustion engines in cars starting in, I think, 2035 or 2030 or 2032 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Conveniently, the next decade, but still early in the next decade. The next day, I noticed that Tesla's stock price went down a little bit, although it's been all over the place, of course. But some measure of all of the talent that exists at GM in Michigan and beyond, is clearly a good news. It's good news for the environment. It's good news for the auto industry as a whole globally, that they're all thinking that way, because it's obvious that the U.S. has been lagging behind in the global race for cars. I mean, if it weren't for Tesla, all of the action would be happening somewhere else, right? So European companies are all producing models that are electric. And so I'm very excited to have anybody in Michigan thinking seriously now about this is the future and there's no turning back, and let's forget about fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's one way of defining what sustainable investing is, because like Garrett said in the beginning, I mean, the real question is, how do you define what is sustainable? I mean, almost anything isn't sustainable. You have to expend resources. You have, just life itself takes up a footprint. And so hard to classify something as truly sustainable and truly green. And then unfortunately, a lot of those techs, maybe they're sustainable, but they're not that efficient, or they cost too much. So it's hard to focus on what is sustainable. And, we're here because we're looking, but we haven't found, but we hope to find, and we hope your viewers have ideas for us, where to find true sustainability. I can tell you about a few things that we've invested in recently, or we're looking at, that could be generally classified as sustainable. And I also have the good news of announcing, although it's not new, but I guess for this crowd, that we created a new fund, and we called it New York Bay Blue. And so New York Bay Blue is now a separate entity from New York Bay Capital, although we all own it and control it. But it's really a dedicated fund to invest in, ecological green ventures. And we've made our first investment, and we hope that in 2021 we'll make more investments out of that fund, which is funded not only by the principals of New York Bay Capital, but also by clients of ours, people we have worked with before. And we've convinced them over the last 12 to 24 months to create a fund, but just to invest in this type of ventures, because I think we all can relate to the important impact of dedicating funds to these new areas. And everybody talks about them, but when you really talk to a lot of funds, they're not really prepared to invest in them, because they've got to, with very few exceptions, sacrifice returns for mission. That's, and if when people are solely focused on maximizing returns,
Mhm.
there's still nothing better than oil or some of these natural resources or things that you can throw away like plastic, to make money. And so New York Bay Blue, we're hoping to join the growing number of funds all over the world that are dedicated to sustainability.
So what,
Let me stop there because I've spoken a lot. I'll tell you more about our investments and at the next opportunity you give me, Kyle. But
here it is. What are you looking at from an investment
oh,
standpoint?
good. I
Get
can at
us,
least take a drink.
go level, yeah, go a little deeper with us in terms of, you put this new fund together, but what areas are you looking at in particular, sector wise or category wise, from the fund's perspective? Tell us a little bit more.
Well, you kindly reminded the audience that we are big in hospitality and in travel, and so we're certainly looking in that area. But we haven't found anything that we're going to be, for this fund to invest in. So we're looking, but responsible travel. I think that the pandemic has made it perhaps a little bit less appealing to to travel to a large resort with a ton of people where everybody is close together, and it's a sort of a crowded experience. Right now maybe that'll come back. We all hope. Las Vegas certainly hopes that that'll happen, but in the meantime I think that there's been growth in the part of tourism that that is a little bit more ecological, where you're going to have small groups in more more of a controlled environment, but where you go more for the experience than for just sitting at a resort at the beach, right?
Mhm.
And so there are a couple of companies around the world that are doing that, and we're hoping to find a few. One of our favorites, Rotamundos, in Latin America, is growing very fast. Um, and it's a company that sets up experiences by having you stay at small, family-owned hotels as opposed to the large, chains. And so that's a good example. And of course, anybody looking at ecological travel would I guess qualify. But you got to be careful, because sometimes visiting a place is almost the same as starting to kill it. So it has to be a very curated. Um, Now with this curation, we've also been and you probably remember this from previous appearances, that we like the fashion industry, and we've learned that the global fashion industry is very wasteful.
Mhm.
Um, Depending on what you read, you could conclude that after fossil fuels and plastics, fashion is probably the third biggest polluter on Earth,
Mhm.
and because of all of the processes that you require, and all you have to grow the cotton, you have to make the cotton into clothes, you got to use labor in various parts of the world that are cheap and kind of exploitative, and then you have to transport, you know, the t-shirts and the sweatshirts from Vietnam to the United States or Europe, which costs a ton of money and resources, just so that they can sit at stores full of inventory that a lot of the time doesn't get sold, and then
Mhm.
has to be marked down and eventually maybe even thrown away. Um, just so that you can sell the one or two garments at premium price. I mean, so when you think about it, the whole thing is a little crazy. Um, so right now we like a company called Wearwell.
Okay.
Uh, you can find them at shopwearwell.com, and they're a curator for sustainable fashion companies. Meaning that if you go to Wearwell and you want to buy something, and you look at what they offer on their site, you know that the people running Wearwell, who are very dedicated, I can guarantee 100% they're totally dedicated and they know what they're doing,
Mhm.
are selecting purchases from companies around the world that comply with a whole bunch of criteria that really classifies them as sustainable.
Mhm.
It could be with fabrics, it could be with just the way they run their business, it could be with the way they manufacture, It could be with the ways they reduce waste. But so far, we're convinced that Shop Wear Well can get you to sustainable fashion, which is a very difficult thing to do for a consumer because the word is interesting, sustainable. So now everybody is claiming that they're sustainable.
Mhm.
But I think that consumers need to be, for now, hesitant to just accept. And it's like the word organic or the word green. Or everybody wants to claim that they're organic or green or good for you.
Right.
Um, but in this case, at least you're going through a curator who
Yep.
is kind of putting a seal of approval and their reputation at stake by telling you that if you buy from here, you are in fact getting something that's certifiably sustainable. So fashion and travel are two interesting industries. I mean, obviously there's a lot more, and we're also looking, for example, at salmon farming in Chile.
Yeah.
They farm a lot of salmon in Chile. I'm sure you've
Mhm.
eaten.
Yeah.
They also farm them in Norway and
Mhm.
in Scotland.
Mhm.
But Norway, Scotland, and Canada use very sustainable, processes, while in
Yeah.
Chile they're behind. And technologies that have been used in Northern Europe have been very slow to transfer and to be adopted by Chile, which is the big producer in the American continent. I guess besides Canada, but.
Right.
Um, so we're working with a company in Chile that has technologies that where they're adapting or bringing in the European technologies or adapting them for their local environment, and contributing to a much cleaner salmon farming industry. That's just another example.
It's huge. I mean, these are great examples and great for the audience to hear as well. I mean, Garrett, anything to add or anything that you see as well as upcoming trends and opportunities that people should be focusing on if they're looking to start dabbling into sustainability and social impact as an investor?
Yeah, as an investor, the issue really becomes what amount of capital you want to commit to this area, because it's very difficult. Difficult. I mean, even as a small investor, there's opportunities in ETFs or mutual funds that are dedicated to this area that you can check out. And then of course you can always do philanthropy and pick whether you want to help people in education or healthcare, either wherever you live, or reasonably, or nationally or continent. And then and then you get more and more, higher and higher amounts. You can get, you can hire a manager that does only ESG investments or other funds. As Julia mentioned, they have a group that they've put some capital in that does this, or when we do it. So it depends on the amount of capital um, to be focused on. But I think the first thing you have to do is decide, do you want to do it? And what does that mean? Do you want to help people? Do you want to help the earth? Do you want to help people get educated? Do you want to help them get health care? Or do you want to help the whales or the salmon or some other cult? Because there's plenty of opportunity if you're interested. You just have to go. Everybody's now connected. Not most people are now connected to the internet and say, I want to really help animals. Okay, what kind of animals? Do you want to help mammals? Do you want to help, reptiles? What do you want to help? And then look it up, and then there's almost always an opportunity to send them a check for $50, or just put in your credit card, or send them a check for $100. And let me tell you, I don't think any of these organizations have ever returned a check. So, which is fine, because that's what part of their business is, to raise capital. So there's plenty of opportunity to be invested. What I found was, for me, I needed to focus on an area that I knew was going to be was going to help in this impact and sustainable investment. And I really wanted to help in transportation, because I knew I could really dig into the companies and understand their business model and how they did it. So I found, for me, it was very easy. It wasn't easy. It took me a while to get there, but I'm now here, and then that's where I've been now for 5 or 8 years, really just in this area. And there's plenty of opportunities, whether they're in Detroit or down in Silicon Valley, or they're in Phoenix, or wherever they are. And now with Zoom and everything else, you don't have to get on a plane and go visit them half as much. For me to invest, I want to talk to their CFO, their CEO, the head of engineering, the head of sales. I want to understand their business model and get into the details with them before I commit my capital or the fund's capital. So those are the areas that I'm very interested in, and I think that it's good. We're helping. As Julio mentioned, the U.S. is very far behind. I think in the U.S. we're now in electric cars, just cars, not trucks, because I'm really focused on the truck much more than cars. Because as I said yesterday, Kyle, all vehicles around the world are divided into 8 classes, all divided by weight. And 1 and 2 are cars, and as they get heavier and heavier, class 8 are the 18-wheelers that we all know, the big trucks. So I'm really focused on the commercial end, which is really 4 through 8. And they're all over the country. So it's a great opportunity for us and for other people that want to be involved in this area. And it's not just the trucks, it's the infrastructure, it's the technology, the software that goes into them. That's all where we're focused, and it's a great opportunity for us. And as I said, if you're interested just in impact and sustainable, you may decide you want to help the chimpanzees. Well, they need help. So if you want to find them on the line and you want to, I bet you can send them a check for $20 or 20 or whatever the amount is. I'm sure that maybe you're going to save one animal, or maybe you can dedicate some small amount of resources to helping education, whether it's in the United States or all over the world. These are areas that are ripe for impact and sustainable investments, and there's plenty of organizations that are there to help. And again, the point to Julio about cars in the United States, we're only at 4% electric cars. And in Norway, where they have plenty of oil, and they subsidize it pretty heavily, they're at 70%. New car sales in Norway are electric. So they're way ahead of us. We had a change in the administration. I'm not going to get into politics, but it was all about being independent in oil. But now the new administration wants to really focus on commitment to this area, and we'll see whether they can, if they pick up the subsidies. And we've had a couple companies. It's not just Tesla anymore. There's a couple companies that are going to be providing cars in the United States. There's 3 or 4 of them that are supplying cars in China. That's an area that's just going to boom. And I really believe that the real area that's going to boom in the United States before it's cars are the trucks, whether it's school buses or whether it's delivery vans. These, the post office finally just awarded their contract, and we've all seen the post office trucks driving around. They look as old as heck, and they are. And they've awarded the new contract for that. And same thing with the UPS vehicles. They look really old, and oh my God, how does that guy drive that? They're commuting to, and Amazon, is going to. They have delivery vans out there now, and they're going to electrify the next generation. So it's coming. It's just going to take a little more time in the U.S., but it's coming.
It is. And Garrett, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation as well? And Julio, I'll come to you for closing thoughts here in just a minute. But Garrett, to you.
Yeah, my website is vwmc.com, vwmc.com, and you can go online and look at what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And there's an email address to look me up if you want to talk to me about it. It's a fascinating area, and there's lots of opportunity.
Thank you so much, Garrett. Couldn't agree more. And Julio, close us out. Closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you online?
Well, it's easy to find us at nybaycapital.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I think I've been told there are many Julio Marquezes, and probably not all good actors. So if you put in my middle initial, Julio A. Marquez, I am told that you can easily find me if you put the middle initial, or if you put Julio Marquez and New York Bay Capital. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I always reply. So everybody should feel free to send us not only their ideas and for investing, but also any thoughts, whatever. We're good at replying. New York Bay Capital is not just me. We have several partners and representation in many countries. That's it. Closing thoughts. Look, thank you. The more events like this are, get organized, the more the word will spread. And I think that we're going to, we all need to be more responsible in terms of the kinds of things that we invest in, the kinds of change that we need to see. And so I hope that we win the race against global warming and many other, overpopulation and food shortages and, of course, viruses. I hope everybody is healthy, stays healthy. I got my first vaccination 2 weeks ago. I'm due for my second one soon.
Awesome.
I hope this all reaches everybody and we can go back to some degree of normalcy, right?
Great.
Absolutely. And thank you, Julio. Thank you, Garrett, again, for talking on today. Rock and roll. I love it, Garrett. I love it. Thank you very much. Everyone, so much for tuning in as well. We appreciate all the comments, the questions that came through. And again, hello to everybody as well. And a big shout out for those who did tune in along with our guests today, Julio and Garrett. Please do reach out to connect with them and continue the conversation. If you'd like to be on a show like today, like Julio or Garrett, please do reach out and we'll find the right topic for you to speak on and share your thoughts and insights as well. Make sure you check out LATOKEN.com to hear from both Julio and Garrett on many other subjects, along with the entire family of VCTV investors that we bring together from around the world. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria and Hasmik for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me, Julio, and Garrett everywhere online and on social media, along with their respective websites. You can find me on social media at Kyle Ellicott. We'll be back here tomorrow with more VCTV. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.